seems legit.
Hey, my legitimates, and welcome back. Today I am using the same fabric as yesterday, but with a panel to make a backpack. This is the Phoebe backpack by Sincerely Jen. Sorry, I've just got a thread. I literally just finished it. So it's got fully adjustable straps, and it has 2 zipper pockets. The pattern actually comes with 3, but I did not put my zipper pocket in. I was going to put it in the back, and then I changed my mind. But it does have that. It also has a slip pocket as well. But you've got this front cute little pocket here, and then the larger pocket that does the whole piece. And there's binding in this bag, which makes it quite a quick sew. So if you would like to see how to make this, please stay tuned. Alright, let's get started. So the first thing I have done is put all of my zipper tabs on my 3 zippers. You guys have seen me do that like a gazillion times, so I did it off camera while watching some TV. So now we're going to take our funky little pieces like this and our middle size zipper. And now I'm just going to use 1 zipper pull on each of the zips, but you can obviously use 2 if you wish. And then I'm going to line these up like so along the edge, making sure that the curve is going the same way on both ends. And that bit goes on top. So we're putting right sides together and then zipper sandwich that lining on. Now I didn't put interfacing on these particular lining pieces because I don't want it too thick for that bulky section. And then we're going to, with a 2.5 stitch length, because that's my favorite, we're doing a 1/2 inch seam here. And then I'm just going to bring, this one's on the wrong way. See, this is what happens when I don't pay enough attention. At least I noticed before I did it. Stitch, back stitch, and over we go. Then I'm going to cut this one off, and I'm going to pull both of these back and then top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the seam like that, and then cut this one. This is chain stitching at its finest. Pull that back and top stitch along here like that. Trim that in between part, and now we have very few tails to chop off, which is nice. Alright, next up, I've got the instructions here. We're actually going to follow the instructions today, just for something different. So, we're going to find the center point of the zipper, like this, and I'm going to put 2 clips, like so. You can also make a little nick in the zipper tape. I don't like doing that though, it unravels very quickly, turns disastrous. And so then we're going to take our front pocket panel piece, which I'm using this panel, even though it says pocket panel, so it's perfect for a panel. Look at that. And we are going to place the right side of the exterior front pocket panel against the right side of this, match the edges of the zipper that have a curved edge. So this part here is going on the front, and if we fold this in half, we can find the center front or center top of this as well. So we're going to just make a little pinch and put a little nick in. Apparently my snips are getting blunt. So the curvy edge is going to go against here, so we're going to line this up, right sides together, and clip it. And then I'm just going to work my way around the curve, like this. Now curves always require more clips than straight parts, so you can see I'm using quite a few here. And it also helps if you loosen up the zipper. So if you open it like this, you'll find that you'll be able to do it a lot easier. So I'm going to line up these 2 layers like so, and then bring the curve down like that. Then we're going to go to the other side. Work my way along from the center towards the bottom. You see now that the zipper's open that it's much easier to attach. Now I have made this bag before out of all leather, and I can tell you that it does work quite well. I did, however, use my other machine, mainly just because I like to do leather on that machine. Right, so now that that one's on, we're just going to push this part down, and we're going to take the matching lining piece, and I'm just going to add it into the clips. Now, you could have done all 3 layers at once, but I can tell you it's tricky, so that's why I do it this way. Each to their own though. Up and along like so. And then we can stitch. So I'm going to start from a bottom edge here. Make sure that this is in fact aligned up. You'll have a tiny bit of the point kind of sticking out. Don't let that bother you. There we go. So I am going to stitch and back stitch. Now, because this is a zipper tape is always 1/4 inch seam allowance. You want to make sure that you're also not stitching over the teeth. And I just pull the clips off as I go, and then once I get a big enough pile, I'll stop and put them all away. And backstitch. I'm going to pull that out. Flip it through. Like so, and then I'm just going to use my fingernails to push along that entire seam to bring it out nicely. And then I'm going to top stitch. So I'm going to go up to a 4 in my stitch length. And we're going to stitch and back stitch to lock it in. And then just top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric. And back stitch at the bottom. Right, so now we're going to find the center top of the zip. I took this off, sorry. So that goes there, that's in the center, and I've made a little nick in the center back piece. And then I'm going to line that up and clip this on. Now, if you want to, you can grab this piece and clip it on at the same time, but we all know that I don't do that. That's just, I don't know, not my thing. I like to do 2 at a time, concentrate on these 2, and then I can add the 3rd one in when I'm ready. So I'm just working my way around. Now this corner I might have to curve off a little bit. So I'm actually going to leave that and then come back to it. So I'm going to come up to the other side and work my way down and around. There is binding in this bag, but it does make it a lot easier to build. I could probably work out how to build this bag without binding, but I like the binding. The binding makes it quicker. Oops, there's the something I dropped in the video. so that's not working out. So I need to find the center of the main panel, and I'm going to nick it. And then I'm going to find the center of this panel and then line them up, because that matches perfectly with there, and then it's centered. And then I can work my way out from the center, like so. So now that I've done that, this corner's a bit dodgy. So, to fix this problem, it was my sewing. I can see where I've gone wrong. I'm actually just going to cut some of it off. Don't be afraid to cut off bits that are otherwise in your way. The bag will still turn out fine. See? So now we're going to find the center of this on both the inner part and the outer part, because we're going to need both. And then, so the idea is that this is going to sit like this. So we need to take this center point and match it up with our other center point that we did earlier. And add this in. And this is why we definitely want to do this separately, because this curve sits the opposite way, so it's trickier to put in. So I'm working my way around. You might need to add some more clips. So like that. And then we're going to do the other side. So you always try and work from the center out. I personally find that much more helpful, especially when trying to add a curve like this. Curve and curve, and then one more at the end. So now it sits up like we're meant to, but we're going to stitch it the other way. So I'm still going to have right sides up, and I'm just going to stitch around the whole edge. Is that stitching? Because it made a bit of a noise. Around the curve, and again we're going to pull the curves out nice and slowly. You just want to keep maneuvering it around. Like that. Make sure you do not stitch over your zipper pull like I nearly did. And then we're just going to work our way along and around. I'm going to clean up my clips as I go, just like always. And we're back to the start, so we backstitch. And so now you should have officially your front panel. And then I can zip that up. Like that. Needs a bit of an iron, but we'll get to that. Alright, so now we want our long zip. And we want our gusset top, which if you haven't got your tabs or your pieces on, it's the skinnier one of the two. So, keeping in mind, so this is how I'm going to work this out. So I want this pattern to go the same way, and I want the zipper to close the same way as the other one. So I want it to close to the left. So this is how I want it to go. So to do that, I'm going to flip this right sides over like that, and then that will ensure that it's going the right way. Just if you've ever wondered how I do that, slow down the process. My brain still does that same process every time. I just usually do it a lot quicker. But I have since realized that doesn't really help you until I explain it. So if you line everything up, you're guaranteed to get the result you want. Now, I probably didn't really need to put this many clips on. I probably could have done this without the clips at all. Ha! Caught that one. Tricky, tricky. And then we're going to put this one right sides down to make our zipper sandwich. So if I wanted to, I could actually just line up the top and the bottom because it's quicker and lazier. And I got a little bit over excited with all the clips. I also know I'm going to run out of bobbin thread soon, so I need to be conscious of that. Clean up the clips. And back stitch. And then we now have this, which is very adorable. So I'm going to pull both of these back. Now we're pulling them both back because we're doing binding. If we weren't doing binding, oh, actually, I don't have to do binding on that bit. So I will just pull the one back and top stitch. You could do it two, but then you got to do more binding. And I just want the 2 rounds of binding rather than 4. And backstitch. Trim off those tails and pop them in the bin. Alright, so that is now our zipper. So now we need to take our bottom pieces and I'm going to put, so again, we want the pattern going the same way. So if that's the top, then that's the bottom. No, wait. That's the bottom. So that the pattern continues all the way around. And it faces the right way. So now that we've done that, I can put this on here. And this on here. And stitch the ends down. And I just ran out of bobbin thread. Look at that. Knew it was coming. I could hear it. Alright, I'm going to make a new bobbin and come right back. Bobbin is all done. So I'm just going to go back. I'm going to restitch this whole line. It's not a very long line. So it'll be fine. Trim off the tails. Pop them in the bin. And then just... Oh, there's another one. See, this is why you should do them as you go. Then I'm going to line this up. And this one. Now this one doesn't really have a direction, so I didn't have to think about the lining direction as well. But if all your fabric is directional, it might be something to consider. So we're going to stitch, we're going to back stitch. Over we go. Do not knock that off. Nearly went off the edge. Beautiful. Now we have a gusset. Ta-da! Now, if you want to make it easier on yourself, I am actually going to stitch in the seam allowance all the way around to hold these pieces to be one single piece, because that's what they are. And again with the binding. So you won't see these stitches, but it's just going to be more helpful when we're trying to attach everything if we've got less flapping pieces and more solid pieces. So we're doing binding on both sides of the inside of the bigger panel, and so this is just going to help us attach things. It might waste a little bit of thread, but I feel like it's going to save me personally a lot of time, so that's why I'm doing that. Trim those tails, and these other ones I can see. And then if you want to, again you don't have to, I'm going to do the other side of the base. Like so. And so now that is just a single layer, because everything's been stitched together. It's now just one piece. I don't have to worry about catching multiples. which again makes my life easier. Now we already found the top here because we're clever. So now let's find the top of our zipper here, and that is then going to attach to there. So that way, there we go. Attach it front and center with the zipper tape touching the print. Now this is going to have to be flipped that way. And then I'm just going to, like always, work around. Now again, I'm going to open up this zipper because it's going to make it more pliable and easier to work with. You can just pull it apart like that, and it'll be easier to get on your curve. Like so. And here at the side, the two zippers are going to intersect. And that side panel should theoretically line up. If it doesn't, for whatever reason, don't stress about it too much. So I'm working my way down and around. And again, these should line up at the side. More clips. Always more clips. Line it up along the edge. Like so. So that's the top half done. Now, I've already got the bottom center from earlier, so I'm just going to find the bottom center of this part. And I'll do both sides just because we'll need it later. Center of everything is the easiest way to line stuff up, to make sure that everything is going according to plan. We always have our clips facing the gusset piece when we're making stuff, and I always like to do the corner curve part last. That's also because I need to trim off this little bit of excess here, and then it'll magically fit. Like that, and then look at that. Matches up with the lining piece. So don't freak out if your corners look a little weird, just do what I do and trim them off. Because depending on what fabrics you're working with, they may not be as pliable and want to go into the corner as well as we'd like. Okay, so that's that side on. Now we could stitch that and then do the next one, but I'm going to add the other piece on as well. So we need one of our back lining pieces. So I'm going to use this one. So my back pieces, one goes vertical, one goes horizontal. That was not deliberate, but such is life. This was the last of the fabric, so once I cut it, I was stuck with it. So I'm putting the piece that's horizontal, it's also got some seam allowance on it, but we won't see that, it'll go into the seam allowance, sorry. It's got some selvage edge, not seam allowance. So I found the center, top and bottom. I'm going to put this against the wall part. So this needs to go over the top, like so. No, wait, the other side, because then we're going to put binding. This side, here, like this, because then we can just put binding around the edge. You could do it the other way if you wanted to, and then stitch up the hole if you only want one side of binding. But this is going to work just as well. So I'm just adding it into the clips. working my way along, one clip at a time. And so then what this is going to do is then we're just going to stitch it and then we can cover it with binding. Now for this particular bag, I think I'm going to use blue, but I could also use a fun color to make it more exciting and do an accent. When doing the accent though, make sure that you use a matching color thread. I'm just trying to think if I've got anything fun in my drawer. And I've got a lump, so I just need to work that into the bag. That's better, right. So, we've got our back piece, like so, and now we're just going to stitch around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to put binding over this whole seam so we won't see it. I'm going to clean up my clips as I go. Over the thick part. So this part here, where the zipper ends, will be a thicker part. Clean up the clips as we go, and then again we're going to go into this corner like so, and then backstitch when we get back to the start. Beautiful. So now I want some blue binding. This is polyester binding from Vardman Threads. And so now I'm going to start at the bottom, because I always do that, and I'm just going to fold it over and hide that entire seam. So see, this is the side that's got the selvage edge, but once we put the binding on, you don't see it. So I tend to use a lot of clips to hold the binding in place. I don't want it to shift while I'm sewing. You want to get it in half and even. If you've got a binding attachment, now's a really good time to use it. I have a binding attachment on my other machine, but not a polyester version for this one. I do have an all fabric one, and I will use it one day and show you. I used to use it a lot when I was making aprons, because I was putting binding around the edge of like all parts of the apron. But now that I don't make them anymore, I don't really use it as much. It was more for clothing, because it can't do super thick layers. So we're about 3/4 of the way right now. Hiding all the raw edges. I know a lot of people are scared of binding, but this does make it really, really, you can have like a lot of fun with it and make it really pretty. clip. One more here. I don't know why I grabbed that many. And then I just wanted to overlap just a little bit. If you're using a cotton one, you want to have enough to tuck the raw edge under. With this, I need to melt it, which is why I always have a cigarette lighter handy. And then I'm going to put one more there. So now, that whole edge is bound. And we're going to need it again in a minute. So, you just start from wherever you want. I'm apparently starting from the top. Usually I start at the bottom, but there is no right or wrong answer. And I'm using this finger here to push against the binding to make sure that when I take a clip off, it doesn't kind of come out. I'm holding it in position with my finger, but the way I'm holding my finger also ensures that I won't accidentally sew it. It's not getting in the way. Let me clean up the clips and go again. So this finger's basically just pushing the binding so that it can't come out while I'm trying to stitch. Again, pushing it with my finger, because you might notice when you pull the clip off, it tries to move out just a fraction. Whereas my finger is no longer allowing that to be true. And then back stitch. Now, grab this, because this is like a... You see this seam? So with the seams that you see, I like the thread zapper. Makes it just, I don't know, better. And I always make sure I put the lid back on. Otherwise, I know me and I will accidentally burn myself. It's just how my life goes. Alright, so that is, oh, I've missed a bit. So see here? I missed a bit. So I actually just need to unpick that corner a smidgen. I don't have to unpick the whole thing. And I just have to tuck it under and then stitch it down again. As good as the whole pushing the finger trick is, it can't prevent everything, unfortunately. So I'm just using my snips to kind of cut every third or fourth thread. Then trim that off, and so then I can tuck that under like that and then just stitch it down. It's not a big deal. Most of the time when I do binding by hand like this, I always miss at least one little bit. Some things just, I don't know, can't be helped. If I was to use the binding attachment, I doubt it would happen. But that would require me going to the other machine. Alright. So now that I've trimmed them off, I can come in with the thread zapper. You can use it two ways. And you can just either melt down the ends, because no matter how hard you try with snips, you always get that little bit sticking up. So what this does is it melts down the little sticking up bit. Right, so that's half of it done. Now we need to go on to our back piece. So with the back piece, I am going to firstly grab my strap connectors and then my chunky square rings, and I'm going to set that over, and I'm going to just stitch all 4 layers together with a normal stitch length. I'm not going up to anything long. We're going to go over and we're going to go down like so. I'm going to do the same to this one. So the side where the join is the side that touches the metal so that we don't see the join. And then we're going to go across and trim that off, and down. Pull that out. And so now I've got our strap connectors. I always like them to kind of be on an angle in the corner like this. That's my personal preference. You can put them up higher, down in the center. I always like them in the angled corner though, so I'm just going to tack them in place like so. This is really a personal preference. You can move them around. You've got quite a bit of leeway to move them around, in fact. But wherever suits you is where you should put them. I'm just putting mine in the corners. Like that. So now I am going to grab all of my straps. So you should have 3 here. We should have 2 long ones and a short one. So my short one, I've decided I just want like a really little handle. I don't want like a big one. So we're going to stitch both edges. And these have been folded over twice. So they're in half and then both of the edges into the center. So then that's my handle. And I'm going to, as always, find the center of this at the top and the bottom so that I can place my handle right in the center. Snip the bottom. Come around, snip the top. Like so. That's the way the handle's going to go. So this is the way we're going to put it down. And I'm just going to put it both sides of the very, very middle. You can leave a gap or you can have it completely touching. That is entirely up to you. Different people like it different ways. I like it touching, so it creates like a loop, and then the bag can be hung up if need be. So that's one. Now we need to stitch our handles. So for these ones, I've tucked in the raw edge and then folded them in half and then both the centers into the half and then in half again. So I'm going to stitch all 4 edges of this because we're going to see, well, we're going to see 3. Rainbow thread also would have looked very cool with this. And if you are planning on changing thread colors and doing a fun binding, you can actually do both the bindings at the end. Now the reason I can do this so fast, this hand here doesn't look like it's doing much, but it's actually untwisting it, and then this ring finger is pushing against that edge, and this hand was pushing the other way to get it to run straight so that I can go faster. It does take a little bit of practice, but that is how I run straight edges. Another thing that people do is you can get the magnets. You put one here, and then line it up and it pushes it straight as well. But my hands work as those magnets due to a lot of practice. It does take a little bit of getting used to, so if you would like to learn how to do that, I suggest you make like a lot of straps at the same time. Another way to do it is to just put both your hands like this, and then my fake nails kind of hold it in place. And you can't really see it, but here it is untwisting against my thumb to make sure that it all lines up beautifully. And again, it is just practice. And so we're going to stitch and back stitch. So now I'm going to grab both of these, and so my print I actually did sideways. So I want to make sure that the join is either both inside or both outside. So I'm going to have my join inside like this. So now I'm going to grab these. These are the old ones, by the way, the old strap connectors. I'm just using them up. So I'm going to have that one go that way. And then I'm going to have this one go this way. So I'm doing this and lining them both up so that they are the same. So it goes up and under like so, with the edges to the inside. It can be all to the outside, you just need to make sure that they line up. And this is all still just on a joining stitch length. I haven't changed it in any way. So stitch forward, stitch back. Whoa. I heard that. Did you hear that? It nearly snapped a needle, which also potentially means that my needle is now bent. So now that I've chopped all that off, I just want to show you what I mean by this. So you can see all these little like fuzzy bits? If you take this, push the button, it heats up, and then you can just melt them down so that they don't stick up anymore. And look at that, they're gone completely. So I really like this tool. It will be one of my gadgets in one of my gadget videos, which will hopefully start tomorrow because I want to make myself a handbag today. Not gonna lie, having a selfish sew moment. Now I just want to make sure that my needle is actually not bent, and this is why I never go fast with a back stitch. For whatever reason, my machine does not like it at all. So a way to prevent such problems is, instead of back stitching now that I'm here, I can actually just pivot at 180 and then sew forward, which is technically backwards. And then that way I don't have to worry about back stitching. Because like I said, this machine doesn't really like it. So again, I'm going to trim off the tails as best I can and then come in with this bad boy and melt them down. Like so. I don't know if you saw that little bit of smoke. I imagine it's toxic, so don't like inhale it. That would be weird. Right, so our back piece, I am now going to hold this with the part, the join facing up, and I'm going to go in from the back to the front of my strap. Right. So this is facing up. I've come back to front. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to go in, up, and down. And then I'm going to check for like the millionth time that I don't have any twists. Because I do. I just saw that happen. So sometimes rather than trying to twist it in the thing, it is just easier to pull it out. So no twist. No twist. I'm going to go in and down. And then pull tight. And then again, make sure there's no twists. Right, so there's actually no twist this time. And then I'm going to put that up here and attach it with not one, but 2 clips, like that. Then I'm going to take the other one and do the same thing. Hopefully just the once, but you never know. So, join facing up. We're going to come in from the back, like so. And then we're going to come up and down. And then we're going to, again, make sure there's no twists. It's easier to fix now than later. You can fix it if you've made the whole bag and then realize that you've accidentally left a twist in. You can fix it. It's just painfully tricky. So I tend to try and avoid that. So now I'm going to also baste these down. And I can just sew across all of them to the other side, because I find that easier personally than cutting it off to go, you know, 3 inches. So that's that done. Now I want to take my back piece and line it up like this, and then I'm going to stitch all the layers together. Again, because it's easier to deal with one piece rather than two. So I'm just doing it at 1/8 of an inch of seam allowance, making sure that everything is flat and beautiful. Like that, and then back to the start and back stitch, trim those tails. And so now we've got a single piece, which will be easier to work with now that I'm going to add it into the bag. So we've got our center bottom and we've got our center bottom. So we're just going to put right sides together at the center bottom and clip it. Now if you wanted to save thread, which is not what I'm saying I want to do, but what you could do is you could clip all of this, and then before you stitch it you could add in your binding as well. I also didn't put a zipper pocket in this on the inside. I did cut one out, it's just occurred to me I forgot to do it. I was actually going to put it on the outside over here, but apparently I've decided that I don't need it. As a kid's backpack, you don't want too many pockets, you have to check anyway. But if you wanted to, you could add up. So the pocket is actually in here, but where I was going to put it is I was going to put it vertically here so that it's something that you could get to while the rest of your bag is still closed. They do it in the Denver bag by, who's it by? Swoon. So I'm just working my way around, lining everything up. The curves can always be a bit tricky, so I may have to kind of adjust this, but we'll find out in a minute, I guess. Oh, that one broke. I didn't drop that one, it actually snapped. It's just because some of my clips are actually getting quite old. Some of them are over 2 years old, and they can only handle so much wear and tear before they're done. Which I understand. Alright, so you can see that I have not put it in evenly in these corners. So what I need to do is take it all off and readjust it in. It's always the corners that give you grief. So what I should have done is top center and top center, match them, and then work our way around. I'm making all of the clips face the gusset. Bringing this around. So even though it didn't look like it fit 2 minutes ago, it actually fits fine. It's always the curves. Do the curves last. See? So again, we're going to go from top to bottom. It always fits. It's always the curve. So I had a big gap before, and now I've got none because it all actually works into that curve. There's no pinching anywhere. You should always just do the tight curves last. I know that from experience. I don't know why I didn't just do it. Now, if you wanted to, you could add the binding in now, but I'm actually going to stitch it together because I have not had huge successes with trying to do binding at the same time as joining. You also want to keep an eye on your bobbin thread because I know I did just do two big, oh, there it goes. I just did some big straps, so I just ran out of bobbin thread again. Now, the other reason I potentially ran out of bobbin thread right now is because I don't completely fill my bobbins. I 3/4 fill them because I have found that when I completely fill them, that they snag and catch, and then I have to unwind a bunch anyway. So it's just me preventing that problem. So I'm just winding one now. Well, I actually cut my thread, so it is still done in, it's wound probably 2/3 of the way. It's just not in the moving parts because it creates a knot. I learned that the hard way. So the next bobbin I wind, which will most likely be off camera, I'm also going to oil my bobbin case because it likes to be done. I got told to do it I got told by a few different people to do a few different things, but the one I'm taking the most in is either you can hear it or you do it once a day. So if you do it in the mornings, although I did mine late last night, which is why I haven't done it yet, but you just put a couple of drops because it's the only place that oil can't get to. And now that I've got a better camera system, I might know what to do another video of it. So if you've just got one of these machines, I'll show you where to put it. So you can see from what I've just done, that was much quicker than rethreading the whole machine. Now I don't cut it on domestic machines. It's just this one's got a bit of a complex system over here. And this bit here takes ages to manually redo. So it's easier to just pull it all through. That's my professional opinion, or unprofessional opinion, whichever way you want to look at that. So I'm just, again, going around the curve. I can hear that my bobbin's having trouble. Can you hear that? I can hear that. So a few things could have happened, but usually it's I get a loop. Can you see that loop there? Which you can usually just pull out and go again. If you do one, hold the top thread and do a full rotation, and it will pull through the bobbin thread. If it doesn't pull it through, it means something's wrong. And I usually get that loop when I back stitch on a full bobbin. But that is now stitched. I'm going to go along and trim off all the tails because they'll get in my way, like that. And now we're ready to add our binding. So you could do a lot of, if you were making this for an adult, I personally think this is a kid print. I think a kid's or someone's going to buy it for a child. But let's pretend that you were doing this for an adult. You could add, on this panel here, you could add a card slot section. You could add lots of different types of slip pockets to be more organized within your bag. You could do zipper pockets. You could do anything really. Basically, you could take any pocket from a different bag that you've made before and liked and add it into the backpack to be a more organized adult backpack. But from experience with my own child, for me to have to organize stuff, less pockets is easier. Because he tends to hide things if he's got more pockets, and then he doesn't remember he's put them in there. And then you spend an hour finding something that was just in the pocket. Literally happened to me last week. So I'm just doing the same as I did before. And I do this in my lap because it doesn't hurt my arms as much. So if I'm over here doing it, your arms get a lot of a workout and they get very sore very quickly, which I don't enjoy at all. But if you sit closer to the desk, I can probably do it a bit closer. It's also harder to see. I kind of have to look over the bag doing it here. But this dark blue, I use a lot of blue and a lot of black binding. I don't tend to use a lot of the other colors. Not intentionally, I think just whatever bags I design, I tend to do that have binding. I subconsciously pick blue or black. Slotting it over the edge. We're nearly back to the start. I do still need another handful of clips though. Probably not that many. I go a little bit overboard sometimes. But I like a bit of chaos in front of me. I'm aware that I'm slightly insane, but the chaos of the makes them easier to grab when they're spread out. Alright, so again, we're going to overlap just a little bit, and then I'm going to melt that so that it doesn't fray and carry on. Preferably not set it on fire. Okay, so it may look like a lot of clips, and it is, but it's also going to help it hold the best it can. Oh, and if anyone's wondering where I got this, it was my local quilt shop that is unfortunately not online. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to start just past the join, or just like on the join basically. I don't know why, but I often like to start on the join. So now we're going to work our way around. I'm pushing it with my middle finger again. I do this for all binding on this machine. It is a weird habit, and you may feel weird to start off with, but I promise it is helpful. Keeps it where it's supposed to be, which is exactly what I need. And I am starting and stopping a lot. I don't want to run off the edges. So it's just, there's nothing wrong with starting and stopping. Not everything has to be a continuous flow. I can't pull off the clip and hold my finger there at the same time. There is limits to my mad skills. And that is apparently one of them. So we're going to backstitch when we get back to the start. We're going to backstitch slowly so we don't snap a needle. This is actually probably, this will get one more bag out of it, and then I'm going to change the needle. As a general rule of thumb for, especially for domestics, 9 hours of sewing and then change your needle. Don't wait until it snaps because it can cause issues, and then you got to go get your machine serviced. So that is my life advice. So I make about, I don't know, 10 or 11 bags, and then I change the industrial needle because I'm not interested in snapping it and wrecking my machine. For the cost of like a couple of dollars to be without my machine for 2 weeks because it has to be serviced is just not worth it. Especially with the volume of bags that this machine churns out for me. So now all we have to do is turn it. Oh, I've got a loose thread there. I just pull on it. Turn it through. Like this. Now, because it's binding, you should be able to get like quite a nice curve. Like I haven't even finished, and that's already looking like a very nice curve. The binding gives it kind of an added stability. This pattern does call for fleece, but I didn't put any because this is a canvas fabric. It's not just a woven cotton. So because it's thicker, all I did was interface it to make it strong enough to be the backpack. Right, we're going to push out this corner here. And again, I've just got random threads going on. They're not ones that I've sewn. I don't know what happened there. But just trim them off. And then do up the backpack. And voila. And then these are fully adjustable. I always like to put them all the way up because it leaves less stuff floating around for me when taking photos. But there you go. So I've got a cute little handle here and a very adorable backpack. And I love the panel. The panel fits on there really well. So I do still need to Tory squish all of this to make the bottom sit a bit nicer. It will need a good Tory squish, but coming out really cool. So there you go, guys. Oh, see, I've got a Tory squish over here too. It's all just sitting a bit weird, but it will work out. But there you go, guys. One very adorable backpack. Alright, guys, I will see you all next time.